Chapter 29. The Fourth Heaven and the 15th Teacher, the Great Goer. Upon entering the cave, the question arose whether we should go left or right. "Go whichever way you like. It doesn't matter when all roads lead home to the light," said a voice. Half of me wanted to go left, and the other half wanted to go right. Then a firm decision was made that our body would move to the right outright. Picture a journey across the globe. Does it matter if you fly east or west? Both ways can take you to the same place. And so what would it matter if we start by going right or left? The point was to move ahead, to keep advancing, to go deeper within and discover the light of wisdom. By taking a step ahead, another foot would follow, and as long as we kept going, then our path would continue. But after a short time, I felt certain that the right foot did not know our path, and so the left side began to pull at me and wonder if we should turn back. "We've come this far, so it's best to keep moving. Be here now. Don't get caught on the mind's choosing. Walk the middle way. We just continue along, because the moments that test our character are the moments that make us strong," said a voice. Now there had to be a light, but there was only darkness in sight. Yet something began to believe that as long as we kept advancing, it didn't matter if we walked left or right. And I suppose sometimes we need forces that we oppose. After all, it's how we grow. Without something standing in our way, we'd never find courage or be inspired. And even though it was so dark, I began to feel the warmth of a fire. If we didn't have opposition, we would never grow or learn. The obstacles in front of you are for your awakening, and so it's time we show them how the heart fire burns, said a voice. Going within the cave, first there was a piercing sensation, as if 3 swords pierced my heart. This was a brutal welcoming into the heart cavern. Feeling so heavy and broken, why on heaven would we walk to the right? And I wasn't alone here. I realized there were many souls I could see. We were all in the darkness of this cavern, aching from the pain when many fell onto their hands and knees. Others had made this journey, and it seemed the same 3 swords pierced many as we were all required to leave something behind. It seemed there needed to be an offering to get into this heart cavern, and by giving up the fruits we had, we'd been led into what felt like the darkest night. Even if only for a moment, everything in existence seemed to hinge on a decision from us going right. And so, some souls cried. And I can't explain how I felt inside. Surely this cavern led us into an unsuspecting part of our lives on the inside, and this pain grew so deep that even curiosity wondered if we would survive. Each step took us deeper, and every step was in stride. What if this feeling of being pierced in the heart is not the end, but rather, what if it's a process to leave our excesses behind? Each step became liberating, yet it was totally unknown. There were many souls in the darkness here, but so many felt abandoned and alone. Gazing into the darkness, I pictured my teacher, who was a dark woman, and simply by imagining her, the contemplative practice connected us where she revealed a great vision. Down below, I saw dangerous armies upon the earth. There were dictators, convicted felons, and ruthless leaders gathered over all of humanity. They worshipped money and power, and so the feelings of heartbreak erupted through the entire community. And so I called out to Kali Ma, since I know her as the Devourer. She arose from within, and there a great fire awoke. This pressure built up around our heart center, when at once the center of the flaming heart broke open. Now do you see how the situations that destroy us can be turned into fuel? That purifying fire was igniting all of our hearts at once, and there in so many of us, it revealed a glimmering jewel.
Aha! And look what happens. Something was ignited by the revelation of change,
said Kali Ma. And so I knew this was not our end, but rather we were coming to life. Sometimes we have to be pushed over the edge in order to act. And from the vision that Kali Ma showed me, I understood that the leaders of Earth had no intention to nurture the land.
The path of the heart is a tightrope. We are in the world, but not of it. We are not from the earth, we only visit. We visit for some time, but we are not there for long. Use everything to awaken. The power is in the integration. Can you resist clinging? Can you let go of attachment? Let go of suffering? Can you walk the middle way and appreciate all sides while being open beyond personal preference? Can you have compassionate concerns for every being and simultaneously see that no one outside of yourself can walk this path for you? Only you, and so whatever appears as an obstacle in the path can be used as renewal. We can either move around it or turn it into fuel,
said Kali Ma. I used to wonder about the left and the right, and mystics call this duality or polarity, but that's a two-land idea, and that separation causes pain, dis-ease, suffering, and anxiety. And it seems to me that the best path to approach the middle way was to use both sides to walk ahead. And just like that, the veil of confusion fell away. It shed like the skin of a snake. The ego thins like the clouds until only a transparent layer remains. Can you hear it? Tune inwards and discover where purity of faith resounds. It's everywhere at once, but usually we're so clouded. This heart is like a jewel that was once covered in dirt, and the material world kept covering it with more and more stuff. Of course, the world tries to sell us who it thinks we are, but in the heart space, we remember we are already enough. There is so much faith in us. It's here within at this exact moment. And once we remember this, then we realize that we are already enlightened. Yet often we're distracted with life, and we forget about the peaceful nature of our heart. We worry about our jobs, our bank accounts, and all the material things, whether our lives will come together or fall apart. But here in the heart, there is nothing else we need. I wanted to give even more, because the more we gave, the more we feel free. In this present moment, the heavenly truth can be found. It's waiting for us to notice. And so we exist in the here and now. There is no fear for what's to come, and there's no fear for what's behind. We are the light of spirit that goes on before life and after death. And so we drop into the heart to release the tight grip of ego within our minds. Now what did I find? I felt freedom and ease. This is the place where all are welcome and everyone finds what they need. Deep in the heart cave, there were many other beings here. These were the brave souls who followed the path of the Great Spirit, who released their grip upon the worldly snares. No longer caught by greed or envy, these beings were not judgmental at all. But who were they?
Community is what we are called,
said a woman. A community? And what kind of community is that?
Satsang, but others call us a Sangha,
she said. This was a diverse community of truth seekers, the beings who embarked upon a spiritual search, and all of them died to their ego nature that once held them back. And here in the heart space, they had found a new birth. What are we doing here? I whispered to the black woman beside me.
We are not here to perfect ourselves. We are here to perfect our love,
she said. This woman was sly like a snake, yet simple like a dove.
I am Spring. Welcome to the heart,
she said. In front of us was a giant fire, and we all had a tiny speck of the flame within our hearts. This was the fire of devotion and love, and it was powerful enough to transform the world that the leaders of Earth had torn apart. Now a dark man rose up and spoke. Mankind is engaged in an eternal quest for that something else he or she hopes will bring complete and unending happiness. But for those souls who have sought and found God, the search is over. They are that something else, he said. But my ego, I have been lost before. I do not wish to intrude in this precious heart space, because when my ego comes back to fight, it feels as if two halves of me are at war. Every time the soul grows, the ego dies, said a mosaic voice. All of us have fought in that same war, and that is what makes our hearts alive, said another soul. Here we were gathered in some sort of ritual or prayer, and yet we all prayed so differently. It was as if these souls had traveled thousands of miles through various different worlds, all seeking the same peace, and they had taken the journey to the left and the right of me. And what was this heart cave? Why, it seemed to be the presence of eternity. And all this while, the truth was hidden at the center of all hearts. There it was waiting, within you and me. These people were also different. They were all sorts of colors, backgrounds, and nationalities. And there I felt their hearts calling out to Krishna, Jesus, Allah, Buddha, Durga, Prophet Muhammad, Moses, and Mother Mary. What was going on here? And why were we all praying to these great beings who had walked the earth? When the veil of confusion lifts, all that matters is the love in each heart, said a voice. It was as if they could hear what I was thinking, and so I too sat down to meditate and pray. One man sang and played a harmonium instrument by chanting, and so he cultivated a sacred community here in the heart space. Everyone was so open. There was nothing anyone pushed away, and if anyone had anything extra, it was immediately given away. If someone was in need of shoes, the person beside them would donate the shoes right off of their feet. And whenever someone gave something away, the more the size of their heartfelt fire increased. Just as one woman gave away her mantras to God and shared them with all, another man gave away food to feed people across the earth. Some donated teachings, meditations, and yoga, while others shared all their money that they had ever earned. One by one, every soul came to the center of the heart, and there they donated something they had within, be it a song, a dance, food, money, clothes, or shelter. Everyone here was so selfless to come forth with an offering. But I had nothing left. I'd found 3 pieces of fruit, but I left them at the great monkey's feet. One after the other, they all came to the center of the heart space, and after everyone offered up something, it seemed as if I might be the only one who had nothing to give away. Now I didn't panic, but I remembered how I'd been trapped in egohood. I began to pray so that I could stay, for in my heart, I wanted to do good and remain in this heart cave. Suddenly, I saw how these offerings were on a spiritual level, and they came to affect all life everywhere. Although it wasn't necessarily a material offering, it resonated through a certain vibration that affected all the material worlds. What's going on here? How can these people affect life upon the earth? I don't understand how we exist in the formless heart space, because this sacred space seems to transcend our human existence.
We have different bodies, and these bodies are vehicles for the spirit. And depending on which body we are tuned into, there are many different worlds, planes, and spaces we can visit. Some people here still have a physical body, and so an aspect of them still lives physically upon the earth. And because they have transcended their egohood, they also have a spiritual body that lives within their heart. We also have subtle bodies too, like bodies that are aligned with the mind and emotions. And often these bodies can get swept away in the tides of the material world, which cause us to feel great suffering. But we can use our bodies to find relief. And so there are the three great jewels. These are like islands in the world of suffering, and they could be thought of as safe havens, methods, or even tools. First, there is our spiritual nature, and some call this Buddha, Christ, or Krishna consciousness. It is the pure jewel of spiritual existence that lives within the heart of each of us. Often this jewel gets clouded and covered by our material lives, and so sometimes we forget about our spiritual nature. But within practices like prayer, meditation, yoga, or mantra, we can polish the mirror of our spiritual hearts and cleanse it layer by layer. This is the second great jewel, and we could call it the Dharma. It is the way, the light, and the truth. It is the teachings of our sacred traditions, our religions, and our paths, which become our duty that we follow. The third great jewel is community, and so it could be called Sangha or Satsang. This is what you found in the heart space, where we've all gathered together in love,
said Spring. Her energy was so welcoming, and her smile was so pure, and even though she used words to speak, love was all I heard. Within her heart was the Buddha living upon the earth, and I had great luck of finding her in person. And here in the heart space, she existed in Buddha's body, and I was in shock upon this auspicious occasion. What in God's creation is happening? It's all an offering, said the man before me. His name was Richard, but that's not what he was called. He was a servant of God, and that is why he was called. He sat before all. He was the man at the very center. All of us waited for him to speak as we sat in the heart cavern. As I looked at my physical body, there were not nearly as many physical beings gathered, but here in the heart space, it seemed that the physical body did not matter. And here before us was a great spirit of a man. I'd call him something like our great conductor. And as for those who are still living in the physical body, why, it seemed he was invisible to the entire earth. Now he spoke, and we listened. Where there is faith, there is the presence of God. God is in all. God is in your impurities. God is even within corruption. There God is smiling at you through it all, saying, and this too. God sees and understands. God is within every creature, plant, woman, and man. God is total compassion. God is the entire universe. God is within all hearts, and God is within all form. You are that form. You are the breath. You are the river, and you are the void after death. Here in the heart space, we are ripened. As we polish the jewel of our spiritual heart, we remember how we are already all enlightened, he said. Then what is the material world? I spoke up. The world is a sort of illusion, overtaken by confusion. Yet here you enter into the discovery of awakening, and here within the heart is our solution, said the servant of God. Many of these beings were without form, yet a small portion of us were connected into physical bodies. And in this realm, we were living from our spiritual bodies. All the while, each of us held the characteristics of youthful children. There was no hate or fear, as we were overjoyed by abundant love. It would be similar to a child's arrival on earth, yet this was a rebirth upon a plane higher up. We were not young in terms of existence, yet we were children of this heart cave, and this energy of the heart seemed to be so rare upon the current age. And so I realized that so many in the world felt betrayed. But how come the world suffers? Why can't everyone be open to this energy of the heart? That's where you come in, my boy. We are called to do our part, said the servant of God. Our part? I wish to make a great offering, but I myself do not know if I have anything worthy to give. If one were to give $1 billion while he had 100 billion to his name, then even though his offering may seem like a lot, the ratio of what he has given is only a tiny fraction of what he has donated. An offering to God is not about how much you have, but it is about the earnestness and sincerity from which we give. Once I heard of a man who had everything taken from him by a noble king, and so his offering to God was that he chose to forgive. Instead of hating such a wicked king, even when the man hadn't even a grain of rice to eat, he chose to forgive the evil king, and such an offering is a noble feat. Once a woman had her rights taken away from her, and she was burned at the stake. Look at how Joan of Arc sits with us now. God knows her as a saint. And have you heard of the Underground Railroad? Harriet Tubman was held captive in slavery. She escaped, but returned to help others 19 times, and so her offering was her fierce compassion and bravery. The offering we choose to give has nothing to do with the amount or size, but rather it comes from the depth of our hearts, and so a real offering has to do with what we sacrifice. So tell us, what are you offering? Said the servant of God. And so I had to think, but I seemed frozen in front of all these great saints and seers. I will offer whatever I can, but what is it that God truly needs? I am simply a human who is trying to get out of egohood. I've battled my ego to find this place. As I've come to set my potential free, then set it free, said the servant of God. But how? You'll do it now. The end is here, and next comes relief, he said. From this heart space, we peered down upon the material world where energy of luminous spiritual light began to surge from the core. And so the worldly confusion and ignorance began to swirl as more spiritual energy was pumped down into the world. It revealed that not everyone was prepared to open to such pure energy. And as time came to change upon the earth, up here it felt gentle and slow. Who are you? I asked the servant of God. But now it was Spring beside me who whispered,
He is the great Goer.
More and more loving energy was sent down to earth, and so it was a type of invisible light. But again, those who were not prepared on earth could not quite open to receive this energy, and since their hearts were closed off, they continued to wage war and fight. The energy was growing the same way lava builds in the base of a volcano, and the great Goer was right. It was only a matter of time until the spirit of earth was going to ignite. Surely the old earth would end, and a new earth would begin, where we would welcome in the new age and new people who would be known as the luminous beings.
The Lakota spoke of the 7th generation prophecy, and it foretold of a tribe that would arise from a tribe of rainbow light. Some creeds call this the Holy War, where it will be revealed that goodness will battle evil and win outright,
said Spring. This woman near me had quite the sparkle in her eye, and she was radiating light out of her wings. Every time she walked, there was a pep in her step, as if she was elevated by a set of springs. Hey Spring, how did you come to reach this plane? If our physical bodies have not died, then what are you doing sitting in Buddha's body? How exactly did you arrive?
When we move to a new level in our spiritual journey, it's not just about celebrating the leap forward, It's also about letting go of the familiar pain we've carried with us. These pains might be our own monsters, but they're ours, and saying goodbye is never easy. We often cling to our suffering because it's what we know. Letting go can feel like a small death. And as for the body of the Buddha, it's within everyone's heart at the center of their chest,
said Spring. So what do we do for relief?
Meditation looks very easy, but it's actually serious business. On this path, we die 1,000 times, shedding aspects of our consciousness that no longer serves us. It's cliche to say we're like a snake shedding its skin, but it's true. Parts of our old life won't come with us as we move forward. Even letting go of unwanted neurosis and suffering requires real acknowledgement. Liberation practice demands grit. Working with our minds requires a fierce heart, so let's get it,
said Spring. Looking around, I could tell who had died to their earthly body and who was still alive. Mostly because you could see the plane of the physical world when you looked into someone's eyes. Hard to describe, but most of the people here had gone and died, as if their soul graduated to a new level of existence, but somehow their spirit was even more alive. So why have we gathered? There seems to be something major happening. I know we're here and now, but where exactly are we going? Whatever conditions confront you, know that it represents the next step in our unfolding, said the spiritual body of a deceased Swami. Now a singing bowl was struck with a small wooden stick, and it resonated through the entire heart cavern. Attention, attention, anahata, anahata, said the great Goer. As I looked again, the singing bowl and the stick was not physically there, but still the unstruck sound resonated. Oh wow, but how? We gather together today to meet in our sacred community of the heart space to discuss what the world of earth will soon face. The old ways are dying, and soon, if the conditions are favorable, we will give birth to a new way, said the great Goer. And how will we help bring about this change? Is it possible to enlighten the entire earth? Surely the Mother Gaia is pregnant with spiritual energy, but with so much destruction and chaos, I fear for a new birth, said a saintly man. Although the humans of the world have been tossed in the sea of suffering and confusion, it is not about enlightening every single person or even the majority. Rather, we come together as 144,000 souls that make up the heartfelt community. We do not need to awaken all souls upon the earth at once, but rather, like a tiny domino that creates a chain reaction, we hold the power to evoke the spiritual gift, said the great Goer. And what happens if such a shift is not possible? What if the power of our community cannot overcome the destruction and chaos upon the earth? What will happen to the material world and the living souls that are confused upon the dirt? Said another saintly person. Be here now. We must not think of what could go wrong, but rather, if we come together, we will prove how all spiritual souls belong. And as my guru has said, saints and birds don't collect. Saints give away what they have. Let us come together and make a great offering. As we go ahead, we must not look back, said the great Goer. But how? I wondered. Stand up if you wish to assist in the great relief of all suffering, asked the great Goer. Out of the 144,000 souls gathered, all 144,000 souls rose to their feet. Whether they were gone beyond the body or lived in the spiritual body, every soul rose out of their meditative seat. Remain standing if you are connected to a physical body upon the earth and are willing to donate this living body to our cause, asked the great Goer. Out of the 144,000 souls gathered, everyone who had already passed on from their physical body upon the earth sat down in a meditative posture, for there was nothing physical that they could offer. Surely they had lived a life upon the earth at some point in time, but it was obvious that these spiritual souls had no physical body that they were connected into. Now, there were only 28,000 souls left standing, and all of us were connected to a body with a living heart. Yet somehow, us physical beings were welcomed in this heart space, all because we had discovered the inner nature of our spiritual hearts. What is the task upon the earth? What is it that exactly must be done? In order for the new age of truth to arise, the battle against the ego must be won, said the great Goer.
How many volunteers do we need? Surely if our bodies are upon the earth, then we will all come together to do our part. We are the tribe of spiritual beings that will protect the spiritual heart,
said Spring. Of course we need everyone, for everyone will contribute each in their own way. But there must be a focal point to document our efforts. This must be done so that the present and future spiritual seekers will not be led astray. If you can hear this, then that means you are among the 144,000 who are called. We will all contribute, for we all have our part. The great Goer paused. Of those with a physical body, remain standing if you're willing to lose everything, even your mind, your heart, and even your spiritual inheritance. Out of the 28,000 who had a body, now only 14,000 of us were left standing. But what was he saying? The more he went on, the more this calling seemed maddening. Since I was new, I had no clue what to do. But since Spring wouldn't sit down, I knew that I had to stay standing too. Out of those who are still standing, you are among those who may know physical loss. But fear not, whatever we sacrifice throughout our lives will come back even greater to us. It is you who stand among us as spiritual warriors, those who take up the spiritual weapons, be it bows with arrows or swords. Know that as you enter into the holy war, your soul will be looked after and guided by the immortals, said the great Goer. Just before we were sent off, there was a final set of words. We remained standing before the great gathering as we were attentive to the final wisdom from the great Goer. Out of the 14,000 spiritual warriors, I want those who walk the right-hand path to move over to the right, for you are among the beings who live lives of harmony and virtue, and so due to your good actions, you will not be able to fight. You will be guides upon the earth, as you are our beacons of light. Those who must battle will tune into your teachings and keep the spiritual values in sight, said the great Goer before turning to the left. And as for the rest, it seems your lives have taken the path of the left-hand path. Even as you have opened your heart, you still have actions which you must pay back. And because of this, you are among the warriors of the left hand that will be called into the battle to attack. The great Goer motioned to the left, and so the other half moved towards the left side, where they would take up the duty as great protectors. But I was frozen in place. Why, I could not move, as I was pinned in the very center. Now the 7,000 of the souls on the left were given a spiritual weapon to be sent into battle. And so it was understood by silence that the root of the unhealthy ego and evil must be unraveled. You there, why are you still? Have you walked the right or left-hand path? Go forth and pick your side, said the great Goer. I did not know what was wrong, and still there was neither side to which I could go. Why are you stuck? He asked. There is still a piece of me that is pinned by the spirit of ego, I told him. Ego? Yes, I see a part of you has descended to the very bottom, yet you are here with us in heaven. Part of you goes up, then down, left and right, yet still you have found your way into the center of our heart cavern? Suddenly, it was illuminated from within, and out of the various bodies in which a soul travels, it was revealed that my spiritual body, physical body, and mental body were in 3 different planes, as I appeared to be trapped in some sort of labyrinth. The spiritual body was aligned with the right-hand path, but part of me was pulled to the left side. It was all due to the nature of my human actions, as a certain aspect of my being was denied to either side from a sort of action, ego, or pride. Ah, so, said the great Goer, as there was a mystery he seemed to know. In this realm, it seemed that the things that were revealed are the things that must be healed, and so there was nothing unknown. Then finally, I understood what this heart calling was all about, and so I stepped forward towards the fire of the heart to make my offering. Caught in the middle, the calling of the heart pinned me between high above and down below. My right side identified with righteousness and virtue, while my left side was given quivers and a bow. Have you come forth to make your offering? Asked the great Goer. Yes, now I know. I have come to offer up my ego. Surely, someone must be an example of the mistakes in which we must release and let go. I'll offer up my self-image, my pride, and my self-importance as I document the path from hell to heaven. And by offering up my ego on this pathway, I hope we can unite the left and right as we rise beyond the spirit of our egos, with the army of the celestial weapons upon the left and the warriors teachers upon the right. It seemed to be quite auspicious to have a central point between both sides. And as we were sent down to the earth, we did not fall, but rather we agreed to the sacred experience. Then the great Goer put his arm upon my shoulder and whispered, I'll be with you. Just listen, and God will direct our chariot. The chariot? Now what was he getting at? With a sudden flash, there erupted a great wind, and it came from within. Then all souls dispersed at once. And so it begins, said the great Goer. The wind carried with it the entire community, but my body felt frozen in place. For a moment it appeared as if I was back upon the earth, but I would never, ever forget hanging out in the love of the heart space.